Very good.
Good evening. Good evening.
Take your bugs with you, lady.
Thank you for coming tonight. I think this is probably our biggest turnout for an annual meeting, and that's all I need to remember for the future, I guess. If there's beer and food, you all come out. Thank you for coming. Hopefully we'll keep the business part of the meeting short so we can get to our speaker. This is kind of a mini history of hops. We'll hopefully start that up again in September. And we'll probably start with the 3 that got canceled almost 2 years ago. We're here tonight to talk about our year 2021, last year, although we'll overlap and there'll be a lot of things on what's going on now. You know, the past is history. You're supposed to chuckle with us. So come on. Hopefully y'all got our annual report. It shows that we came out from the black a little bit. At least I think it did. Yes. Yes, okay. It's been so long since I looked at it. And that was mainly because of the generosity of you all, the city of Seaside with a grant that we generally see most years, and a couple of grants that were particularly related to COVID. You know, those have dried up now, so this year we'll be out banging on the doors and then trying to find more grants that we can try to get a hold of so we can continue our mission to tell about the history of Seaside. And I'm excited because we've got a good crew of people that are excited about telling the story of Seaside, and we've updated some of the exhibits. Hopefully before too long, just about all of the exhibits will be updated. And we're getting into all kinds of other things. You know, like I'm particularly excited about being able to do history and hops again. If I ever had a great turnout like we had for history and hops, you know, sometimes we have as many as 80 people there. If I ever got that for a museum annual meeting, I'd probably fall over dead. So that was the pull, I think, this year, to be able to have you come out and have a little fun while we do it, not just have an annual meeting. A couple of our board members going around, we're doing a little 50-50 drawing, and all that means is you buy a ticket, or as many tickets as you want. You know, I think we probably have 500 tickets or so, so if somebody wanted to buy them all, that'd be fine. You could do that.
I would be more than happy to do that, even if it confuses me in terms of counting.
The deal is that you get half of the pot, and half the pot goes into the museum funds. Tonight, instead of me talking, I've convinced or twisted the arms or something of some of our other board members to get up and talk a little bit. And I haven't actually confirmed with everybody whether they want to or not. So I'm just going to call on some of them. Joanne's over there shaking her head. How about David? You want to tell us anything? Let me introduce you first. David is our treasurer, has been basically almost as long as I've been here. Actually, Lynn Ryan sitting over there was the treasurer for many years before that. And we keep her around because she keeps us on our toes. But David.
It's been a very interesting last couple of years with the COVID on one hand and the stock market flopping around on the other hand. But we're keeping our head above water. Appreciate everybody's efforts for the museum.
Thank you.
We look forward to even better years coming up.
Okay. Let's see, I see Rachel over there. Rachel has a particular interest that she does, and she and Tita followed up really well on that this year. Can you yell? Or you want me to bring you the mic? I'm not sure it reaches that far. Okay.
So partway through the year, when we were sorting stuff in the storeroom, we discovered that we had a number of artifacts that actually belong to Native Americans, the local tribe, and that have been in our museum collections for quite a long time. And there is a huge movement across the country to return things like this to the tribes. And so we started repatriating what we have, and we made contact with the Clatsop-Nehalem tribe, who were delighted to have back the things they went through and identified what belonged to them. And we handed over to them with the understanding that if we do turn up anything else in our going through things, we will get in touch with them. They are delighted that we have started this relationship with them. They want to continue it. They want to have something long-term in the way of a relationship, and they hope in the future that we will do perhaps combined exhibits or something of that kind. And particularly looking forward to the fact that they are building their own museum, and that we want to support them long-term, and we want them to know that we are not only repatriating items, but that we are supporting them in what should have happened all along, where we are acknowledging this and where we are doing it in their voices, which is what they are most unhappy about, is that it's always been white people's voices and their voices weren't heard. And so that's why when we rearrange things, the Jenny Michelle exhibit now has a quotation, a long quotation, that she herself gave as an interview to the Oregonian. And it's her voice selling. Okay, was that enough?
That's great. Thank you, Rachel. And Tita had a big part in that too. We were really excited about, I don't know if you heard, but the North Coast Land Conservancy deeded over the land up at the estuary to the Clatsop-Nehalem. And they're hoping when they can raise the funds, which I'm sure they'll be coming to lots of us, that you're very generous and you help them out as much as you can. Let's see, who else is here? Leah, you're the closest.
I am the closest. Let me get my notes.
Leah has been with us now for a year and a half or so. She is a retired librarian from Newburgh, and one of the very first things she did was come in and reorganize our library. So you can actually find things now, and most of what you find actually has something to do with Seaside or the North Coast, or Lewis and Clark. So it's really nice, you know, you don't pull something out that's about, you know, I don't know, somewhere in North Dakota. So here's Leah.
Thanks, Steve. It's actually only been a year. It's only been a year. So it's been a lot of fun though. I really enjoyed getting involved with the museum and connecting. My family has been here since 1910 and just recently discovered pictures from my other side of the family that showed them vacationing here in 1913. So I've got both the locals and the visitors in my background. So it's kind of fun to have both of that background. So I've got a couple areas that I work on. One is with volunteers, and of course we're always looking for volunteers. In fact, we're going to start our expanded hours starting after Memorial Day. We'll be open 11 to 4 Wednesday through Saturday, and we need more people. We need more volunteers. We're working on the processes. We're planning that nobody will have to be there by themselves, that there will be a second person there, and that so you have backup and that type of thing. So I think it'll be a lot of fun, and it's a great way to meet people, to learn more about Seaside. So if anybody is interested, I have put some forms on the table, or just talk to me, and we can work it out. John has been volunteering with us for 8 years, and I think he will tell us that he likes it, right? He is our Saturday volunteer, and he is the most dependable volunteer that I have ever worked with. And I've been in libraries for 50 years, and I've worked with a lot of volunteers. John is the most dependable volunteer that I've ever worked with in all those years. So, thank you, John. One of the things we hope to do for those who are volunteering is provide them with some projects to work on while they're there. So you're not just waiting for somebody to come in. Maybe you'd like to do some research on a topic, or maybe you're a good writer and could write a little article for the newsletter, or maybe you like to make word puzzles and you can make puzzles for us to give out to people. Anything that might be a talent of yours. And so we'll work with each person individually to work that out. One of the things about being the volunteer coordinator and working with volunteers is we have a nice gift shop that we're adding more items to. And Theresa, could you come over here and get the gift shop items for me? Wait, I think I can reach. Would you pass these around? I brought some specific gift shop items that I wanted to share that were related to tonight's program, and that is the Daddy Train. And so we've got some Daddy Train magnets that you could buy tonight. And another thing we have that we just recently added to the collection, to the gift shop, are these great Seaside playing cards. And they have scenes of all over Seaside that an artist developed and did these playing cards. They are very popular, so I would encourage you to look at them and think about purchasing them. I did forget to bring our charge card device tonight, and I was specifically going to do that. But we can work with you if you don't have cash with you, since I've taken all your cash already for the 2020. The other thing that I'm working on, and Rachel and Tina kind of mentioned that, is that we've been going through the collections room. We have a lot of things in our back room, and there's a lot of things that we're still going through, discovering, reorganizing, finding things. And a couple of them I brought up here, so be sure and look at the table next to the fence post. Because I guess when you've been a librarian for 50 years, they ask you to do organizational things when you volunteer somewhere. I guess it kind of goes. And one thing about volunteering at the museum is that I didn't know anything about museums other than the periphery of what I knew from being a librarian. And so in September, somehow or another, it all came together. I attended over 30 hours of online webinars, because they all came in September. And so I felt like I learned a lot in that month, and I was getting a little exhausted from it, but I really felt like I learned a lot and could really take a lot of that information to what we're doing now in the museum. So I think that we're all looking forward to COVID being over and being able to invite more and more people to the museum. So that's it. Oh, and if you haven't bought your tickets yet for the 2020 raffle, or 50-50 raffle, maybe 2070 raffle, 2080 raffle, that's a good deal. You know, we'll keep 80, you guys get 20. So I will be around after people have talked to sell more tickets.
Okay, thanks, Leah. Always selling. Rounding up people. We got somebody to come and join us when we reopened last June, and she did a tremendous job on what I look at as our biggest artifact. That's the Butterfield Cottage. It's certainly one of the oldest artifacts. You're not going to pick it up and move it. It's there for the time being. And in particular, she cleaned up a lot of things, but in particular she did something that was really cool. That was take all of our old hats and create a exhibit about Marion Roberts, the House of Hats. or whatever the actual name is. How many people here actually went to that shop? Is there anybody? I know it was quite a while ago. So anyway, so that is the back bedroom on the first floor. And if you haven't seen it, you really need to. So Robin is our curator for the Butterfield Cottage.
There I go. I brought a speech. You don't have a stand for this, do you?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm going to be your stand.
Yes, you can hold it. Okay. Welcome, museum members, and it's nice to see you. I'm Robin Montero, and I have the privilege of being the curator for the 1893 Butterfield Cottage at the Seaside History Center and Museum. With a combination of my professional theatrical background and my passion for history, this makes a very compatible partnership. While the cottage was closed for 2 years, the downtime offered opportunity for much-needed revitalization before the then upcoming June 11th, 2021 grand reopening celebration. In addition to the new exterior signage at the museum, the cottage exterior also received a bit of a facelift, including new paint and graphics on the entry arch, refreshed paint on the building's trim, and the beautifully decorated porch benches by Shirley Yates add a warm, welcoming, and cheery finishing touch to the Butterfield. The interior challenge came as to how to offer a fresh perspective on the many lives that the cottage has had since its primary residential beach cottage days to the various commercial businesses that occupy the building up until 1984. So where did I start? At the beginning. Newly installed larger-than-life photographs introduce you to the Butterfield family in the entry and engaging our guests with decorative and easy-to-read cottage history and exhibit writings, we are able to provide our viewers with a full and satisfying experience. The cottage exhibits and decor represent a seaside beach rooming house set in 1912 with an authentic portrayal of everyday life, leisure, and activities, including local historical artifacts and display pieces of the period. A new installation in the cottage is the House of Roberts millinery exhibit. Master milliner Marion Roberts and her husband George purchased the cottage in 1958 and opened up a hat shop that operated until George's death in 1972. With a generous private donation of over a dozen authentic House of Roberts hats, the display is presented in a split view, with the gritty workshop on one side of the space and the glitzy showroom on the other. At our reopening celebration last summer, we were thrilled to have Marion's niece, Pat Christensen, as our honored guest. Another commercial life of the Butterfield was 21 North Columbia Antiques. Upon the store closing, leftovers of the shop were packed away in a very small box and donated to the museum many, many years ago, and until I happened to come upon the box last May, the contents hadn't seen the light of day for decades. And man, what a treasure trove I found. The prize of the pack turned out to be an old, sandy, and black and very early 20th century seaside souvenir teacup with a painting depicting the Moore Hotel. Now these souvenir items were somewhat common, but what makes this item especially spectacular is that this relic is a fully intact survivor from the Great Seaside Fire of 1912. And is the featured showpiece in our souvenir china exhibit. For those seeking additional information at the Butterfield Cottage and the exhibits, we provide QR code access throughout the installations that will direct you to the museum website. The most recent undertaking, and probably the biggest accomplishment in the Butterfield that took 29 years to produce, I gotta get this out, is the Heritage Gardens map. This double-sided trifold brochure features the Heritage Garden and its history as designed in 1993 by then Southwestern Garden Club President Nancy Berry. Although the gardens are updated with season annuals, the integrity of the original core design remains. One of the many highlights in the Heritage Garden is a rose that came to Seaside over the Oregon Trail. During season, the all-volunteer Southwestern Garden Club holds a monthly work party at the gardens led by committee chair Theresa Taylor. The self-guided garden tour map is available at the museum, the cottage, And a large representation version is featured in the kiosk at Downing Park, located at Broadway and Downing in downtown Seaside. For further information on the Southwestern Garden Club, you can find them on Facebook. As to the future of the Butterfield, I will continue to redress, refresh, and update the cottage and exhibits for the seasons, including spring flowers, summers at the beach, fall foliage, and of course, the celebration of the Christmas holiday season while maintaining the authenticity of the era. Regarding future events at the cottage, I'm exploring various opportunities with the hope of carrying on well-loved traditions of the past, as well as establishing new traditions. And as with most of us, the old girl of 129 years requires maintenance. Work is currently underway to replace her aging custom fence pickets as needed, and we're also building a new double gate into the entry yard. She needs work on the west second-story windowsills, and new wood replacement gutters are needed all around the entire building. We're actively seeking artisans to undertake this work. Unique Butterfield Cottage merchandise can be found exclusively in the Seaside Museum gift shop, and we continue to expand our gift selection. In closing, I would like to acknowledge that without the vision and tenacity of then Museum President Helen Gaston in securing the cottage back in 1984, a priceless piece of Seaside history would have vanished without a record. And as Butterfield Cottage curator, and more important, a Seaside Museum member, I see it as all of our duty to preserve, conserve, and share the stories of the Butterfield Cottage, the only beach cottage museum in the state of Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. That is, the cottage really is a treasure. And you won't find anything like it, like she says, in the state. Probably even in Washington. So, Brian, do you want to say anything? Brian Ratty, renowned author here on the North Coast, is one of our board members.
I just want to say you all look so much better than on, what do you call it, YouTube or?
Yeah. Zoom, whatever.
Zoom,
Yeah.
oh, it's nice to see you in life.
That's for sure. Let's see, Rachel is our secretary and she does not want to talk, but she's over there. Raise your hand. Or Joanne, not Rachel, yeah, sorry, Joanne. She keeps all of her paperwork in order and does a great job of it. And let's see, we have the curator for the Gaston building. In case you don't know, we named our museum building after Helen Gaston shortly after she passed on. So, Theresa.
My name is Theresa Taylor, and I'm probably one of the longest members of this museum. I was part of the exhibit committee that took over the Butterfield and did a lot of work on that, which a lot of it's still there. I was part of the museum when we redid the museum in 1990, and now I'm back redoing it again. You know, some things just never change. So I am the liaison with the Southwestern Garden Club, and we have put, I just want to give you a fast update on that. We have put in over 900 hours of work gardening. The Southwestern Garden Club takes care of the Butterfield gardens, and they pay for somebody to put down the compost, all the fertilizer we provide and everything like that. And to say, and for that I'm going to do a little advertising. We have our fundraiser, which is a plant sale, May 28th, which is Memorial Day weekend, from 9 until noon, and plants go fast. And we also have a raffle, which I will set out later on, that you can buy raffle tickets for a lot of different really nice planters and things like that. So contact me on that. We work really hard. It's a labor of love for us, and we have a good time. There was 7 of us the other week, And we had a great time digging weeds and replanting things. So, we already talked about our Tom Sawyer fence. We have Bruce Evers, who is our backdoor neighbor on the west side. He came and said he would volunteer to cut all the pickets, and he bought the wood and he's cut all the pickets. We bought some stringers. And then John has been working on painting them between the raindrops in April, which is not an easy thing to do. So, thank you, John. Our Gaston building exhibits. Since I came on board on the exhibit committee, we have put in the Prom Exhibit, which was at the library. It's a lovely exhibit of a lot of photos that tell the history of the prom centennial. It's been very popular with people. We then moved on. We have some new members that came in, and by the name of Marva and Bill Wirtz. Bill had run a linotype machine in college, and they took a look at that and they go, we want to help. So they sponsored the Seaside Signal Room. It's been 34 years since it was redone, and so we have jumped in. They have monetarily sponsored it and have worked on it. It's been lots of fun. We've learned all sorts of things that we didn't know we knew. I said, I didn't know I knew, the last time I did this, I didn't do as good a job as I really want to do this time. And that's what I'm working on. So we have worked on the Seaside Signal Room. We have also worked on, like Rachel said, we have brought back the salt makers, and we wanted to make sure that we told Jenny Michelle's story. What she said in the Clatsop Nehalem's words. So be sure to see that in the museum. On our Seaside Signal Room, we have been working on that, and the thing about the Seaside Signal, it is the mirror of the people that have lived here. It's who we are. It takes the history, and we're going to move that in. We're going to show some headlines. We're going to show Edna Furnish's book and her articles. We're going to show Jack Fosgart's articles on history. We're going to show Claire Lovell and her editorial attitudes of Seaside. We want to bring back the people that help make the Signal who it is. The editor, publishers, Matt Schaefer, for 46 years, he was the voice of Seaside. If you liked it or not, he was the voice of Seaside. We are bringing back Buddy Dorr, who did everything at the Signal. One of my favorite is Wayne Brown, who was the linotype. He was a printer. He ran the big printing press. And I contacted his wife, and she is still alive, and we were talking, and she was saying that Wayne was a printer extraordinaire. He could go anywhere and print anything for anybody. And so we've got some great pictures of him. Her favorite story is when they first got married in '74. He came home and he said, well, I just stripped Miss Oregon. And she looks at him and went, what are you talking about? Apparently, stripping means that you put to bed, or you got finished with the Miss, yeah, it's not any better, the Miss Oregon program. And so we've got some good pictures from her, some fun stories, and we're just excited to get that Seaside Signal room finished and back where it should be. We've also had we're redoing what we call at the turnaround. We have the history of the hotels that are at 30 North Prom. We have bathing suits. We have the natatorium and history of the natatorium, the history of the natatorium when Vern Raw and Les Raw owned it, which included the American Legion and the Pipo Club. So we're bringing in some new stories, new photos, bringing some new life to the museum in certain areas, and we've got a whole list of projects that are in the works. So we're very excited about it. I did want to tell you all about, when I got back into the museum, I go, I need to have some training. And of course, the internet is fantastic for that. And I got in and I found the Smithsonian guide for small museums. And that has been kind of my Bible, going with them, what they recommend. And one of the things that they recommend is that we are very unique in here, just like we have the first, a tourist cottage with the Butterfield. We also have a museum that not only caters to those of us that have lived here forever, those that have moved here, but those that have visited. And that is what is really important, is our visitors that come in can see themselves. They can see relatives. They could imagine themselves at the beach in some of our 1930s bathing suits, So that, and John shakes his head because she knows that that's what people do. So, I'm very happy to be back working at the museum, and I do want to invite you to the opening of the new Seaside Signal Room, which will be May 7th at 2 o'clock, and you can tour all our other exhibits also. So, that's it.
Thank you, Theresa. Okay, I think I got everybody. But there is one person here that I myself am truly grateful for. I mean, I'm grateful for all of you, particularly my board members and those that are involved. But about, 3 years ago, I heard that Jack Fosmark passed away. And Bob Moberg and his wife Kathy were great friends of the Fosmarks. And one day Bob called me up and said, Jack Fosmark passed away, and lo and behold, he has a few papers and things that he collected over the years. I had no clue who he was. Bob told me. And so one day his widow, Lee, shows up in her little car with about a dozen letter-sized boxes full, completely stuffed full, of the documents that he had created about Seaside history over a period from the late or the mid 70s up through the early 90s before he moved to Salem, and then went to work and did a bunch of Aurora Colony stuff. So it was just overwhelming. There was so much there. I put the word out and just put it in the newsletter and told people I'd really like somebody that could just scan all this stuff. It didn't take very long when this one young lady came and said, I'd be happy to do it. And she came and looked at the stuff, and she said, I think I need a new scanner. So she went out and bought a new scanner too. And she had done a bunch of work for Clatsop County Historic Society. But I've never thanked her. I've thanked her a lot because there's some tremendous work that's there. But I've never thanked her in public. So I'd like to, Sheila Nolan, please stand up. Thank you so much. We're in the very early stages of putting a lot of that work online. We're using the Internet Archive, if you've heard of that, to be able to put these documents up there. They're all in the museum, and we're trying to get a computer set up so if you just want to come into our library and research, you can do that. And it's pretty easy nowadays just to type in a search term. If you want to look up Pipo Club, and it'll come up, probably with 100 references to it from his work. So I have learned a tremendous amount about the history of Seaside. I'm kind of a history geek or a nerd or whatever you want to call it, so I thoroughly enjoy just sometimes sitting down and just reading about the story. So we come now to a bittersweet part of our program. Tina, would you come up here? Tina joined the board somewhere in the months before I did, and I could tell she was very involved, and all through the time I've been here, she has done a tremendous amount of things. Been involved in grant writing, which I knew nothing about. Doing all of our press releases, all of our advertising, all those kind of things. And then more recently, taking over the exhibit committee and creating our, I get the name right, the Prom Centennial thing. I was occupied elsewhere at the time, so I wasn't involved so much in that. But she headed up the committee and got a tremendous exhibit in there. And it's still there, celebrating our world-famous, iconic, as it said in the August 11th Seaside Signal, seawall and promenade dedicated. You know, I always think it's kind of funny, they called it a seawall and then the prom, because it was used to keep the water out of the houses that were up on the prom. So there's a tremendous amount of stuff there. The exhibit's still there, so if you haven't been there, I don't know how many other things you've done. Always involved, you know, all the time. Like I said, I've been there, and I have no idea what she did before, but I assume it was all the same kind of thing. So, you know, over 8 years worth. What we're doing tonight is honoring you with a lifetime membership and a special certificate, says lifetime membership. Yeah, and I actually made a little card and laminated it. So, lifetime members, if you haven't gotten one yet, hopefully you have, but all the lifetime members, I'm trying to get a laminated card. So, would you all please stand and give her a big round.
You know, when I was growing up, history was not an important thing to me. And when I came to Seaside, I certainly, and that was 2002, I never thought that I'd be involved with the museum, and I never really gave history much of a thought. But I lived 2 blocks from the museum, and I just recently moved, and I still live 2 blocks from the museum. And the museum just sort of grows on you. And I think becoming interested in the museum and the people, and also being a huge promoter for the city of Seaside, because I love Seaside, I think that's what ultimately got me interested more on the history side, and fueled the interest in history and the wanting to promote history. So while I'm a big promoter of Seaside, I've also become a big promoter of the Seaside Museum, and in all the other things that I've been involved with, people knew that, well, you know, the Seaside Museum could use this, or we might be able to do this. And so I thank you. I'm leaving the board, and I will be back in the not too distant future as a volunteer, but going on to let some other things fill my life a little more fully. So thank you. This was so unexpected.
Purple, yes.
We did kind of know that purple was your favorite color, and this orchid is just a little symbol of our appreciation for all that you've done. Tina and I sat many times sitting at the table just at the time that I've been involved with the museum, having lots of discussions about how to move the museum forward and everything. Yeah. And I look forward to working with you as a volunteer. But we thought, you know, the certificate is wonderful, you're a lifetime member, that's great, but you know, you sometimes need something pretty. Oh, and you just moved into a new place, So we thought this might be a nice little addition. And as the woman told me at Natural Look today, all of those are all sorts of buds that are going to come out with this orchid. So it's a gorgeous, gorgeous orchid. So thank you to you. So able to set it right there.
Yeah. That's yours now.
These two look pretty shifty.
Okay, this is probably what y'all came for, not to listen to me or any of our board members talk. We'll hold off on the drawing, so you stick around until David's finished. Pretty tricky, huh? I never put two and two together until about a few months ago, when you know, Poole named to me, you know, is a bunch of different people, and I never connected David with the person that drew, or I don't know what you call it, the artist that made the mural on the side of the museum. And so I stopped by his kiosk store, whatever you call it, in the Carousel Mall, and just started chatting with him. Unfortunately, he wasn't with the customer at the time, and found out, you know, he obviously knows the history of it. It was about 20 years ago. And so I thought this would be perfect as kind of a mini piece of history in Hawks, a piece that is particularly important to the museum. And so we didn't have, you know, big overhead or anything, so I think David has some pictures he might pass around, but he's just going to tell you the story of how this fantastic mural came about, and maybe some of the little secrets that are in it. David Poole.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me here tonight. I've never spoken in front of a group of people like this before. I taught martial arts for a long time here in town, many years, so I'm used to like people wearing these black uniforms, all getting ready to be beat up. You know, so. Anyway, that's another part of my life, but I am honored to be here tonight, and the Daddy Train idea started when Helen Gaston came to me in my shop at the Carousel Mall and asked me if I'd be interested in painting a mural for the museum. And she said it's called the Daddy Train, and she showed me a picture of it, and I was like a little overwhelmed at first how big it was going to be. It was 8 feet high and 20 feet long, so it was quite a project. I didn't know really how long it was going to take me. I thought, well, it's take at least a month to do. It took 8 months to paint, and as it would have it, Susan Deshawn, the mall manager, had some space available at the Carousel Mall there. Down that aisle where the arcade is now, I don't know if you've been in the mall, but down that aisle there were some shops that weren't being used, and there was a big space there. She said I could use that space to paint the mural. So I set all my boards up there along the wall, leaned them against the wall, and I had to look at the photograph I was using to paint it. I had to figure out how I was going to get the photograph accurately. I mean, I wanted it real accurately onto these boards. So I made another picture of another photograph of the copy of it, and then I gridded it off. I did a grid, but I think on my photograph I did an inch high, inches across, inches down, right? And so that equaled a foot on the mural. And so I could be accurate that way and get everything I needed and wanted accurately, because I really wanted this to look just like the photograph, but I was going to add color to it. So, by the way, if anybody has any questions, you know, while I'm talking here, just don't be afraid to ask.
What kind of paint did you use?
Oh, I used sign painter's paint. I used an oil base. It's called one-shot sign painter's paint. And it was a little bit tricky to use because I had to get it mixed, you know, first. Some of those photographs will show that I was mixing on that big table. I was mixing paint a lot, asphyxiating myself. I walked out with a headache sometimes because the paint was so strong. And anyway, and then interesting, you know, some people would come by and comment. And one time, you guys have looked at the mural. There's that one part where those three little girls are standing in those white dresses, right? Well, one older lady came by with her husband, I think, and she looked like she was about 80 or 90 years old, and she says, "I think I'm one of those girls in that photograph." I went, "Wow, that's really something. Thanks for telling me that. I appreciate that." So those are some of the interesting little details that happen. And the guy that, this guy here, I don't know if you remember Emmett or not. Anybody here knew Emmett Muffle? He was a World War II vet. He's the guy that helped me mount the picture on the wall. He built the frame for it on the wall outside the museum. And Emmett was such a character. I just really wanted to talk about him, just mention him. He was the one that helped me get the mural secured to the wall. He did most all that work, so I really appreciated his efforts. Is there anything anybody wanted to ask me? What's that?
How long did it take you from start to finish?
About 8 months. Oh, and I included several people that I knew personally in the picture. One is Helen Gaston's in there. She's in the picture. So is Dolna and Mespo. She's in there. Our mall maintenance guy's in there. Val. Because Val is Emmett's son. I'm in there, and then kind of in the middle, but I painted a great big mustache on myself so you wouldn't think. I didn't want to just paint myself. So, yeah.
As a reflection on how well you did on those portraits, to show some out-of-town people that mural, and the lady looked at it, and then she looked over at the picture of Helen and looked back and said, "That woman's in that picture." She recognized the actual photo of Helen to your picture.
Yeah, that was a key for me. I really wanted to make sure I get good likenesses, and that's my job anyway, because I draw portraits for a living. So I knew I could get an accurate representation if I just took some time with it and just took my time and painted the details I needed to paint. So, yes?
Did the moisture of North Coast beaches make havoc with what you were painting, even with painter's paint like you were doing it? Did it dry, I guess I'm asking to say? Did it take time to dry?
Well, I mean, when it was hanging outside?
Yeah, once you got it done, did it take months for it to dry out, or?
No, it was dry already. I wouldn't have hung it up if it wasn't dry. And I painted a sheen over it, a coat of protective paint over that. So
the salt here or here won't affect the paint at all?
It could. Needs some. It probably needs some archival work right now done on it. You know, needs some, because it's aging. Yeah.
Is it on wood or canvas?
It's on wood. I forget what it's called. it's a real smooth surface wood. That's what I wanted. I wanted a real smooth surface so that it would get easier for me to get details that way that I wanted. Yes?
Like a sheet of plexiglass on top of it, I mean,
There is glass on top of it, yes. Yeah.
When was the installation finished?
2001. So I started the painting like in October. That's when Helen came to me. And I finished it about 8 months later.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. But I didn't mind because I just, it was going to be something I'd never done before. And I was proud of myself that I was able to get this done. I mean, beginning to end, it was just, it took a lot of effort, but I enjoyed it. Even though it was difficult, I enjoyed it. And it taught me something, taught me something about painting a huge image like that. And then I learned something, about myself and what I could do if I just put out the effort. Yes?
Have you done any other large-scale works?
Yeah, when I lived in Los Angeles, well, before I moved back up to Oregon, I painted I did some sign work there.
Which is how you knew the sign paint would be the right?
Yeah, so I thought one-shot sign painter's paint. It's so thick, and it's they call it one-shot because it goes on in one shot. It's real, just you don't have to go over it to get it to cover. It just covers right away. And that's why I used that. And it was oil-based, which I thought would last longer than an acrylic. So,
have
yes.
you done signs before? Is that where you started when you went to portraits?
Yeah, I did sign work in Los Angeles. I did some signs in Portland before I moved down to LA. Did some sign work down there and moved back up to Portland. I only lived down there for about 2.5 years. I drew portraits down there for 1 season, then moved back up to Oregon. I found out about Seaside in '86, and I moved here in June of '86, that first week, June of '86.
So you have a history of sign painting and...
Yeah. But I really didn't love it. I didn't love sign painting. I love drawing, that's what I love to do. I loved, and I loved drawing figures and faces. And so, what else? Anybody else? Question?
There's a lot of figures in this painting.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely can tell that, and I picked you out right away.
Yeah.
It's the mustache. It's the mustache.
Yeah.
I just want to say that volunteering in the museum, I see people coming in and out. I see a lot of people stopping and really looking at that mural, and especially on the days that we're closed. I hear a lot of people right outside the walls, because apparently our walls aren't that thick, and we can hear people talking right outside the walls. And I hear them out there talking about the Daddy Train mural, and they really appreciate seeing it. It's from an iconic picture from 1912, and of course the Daddy Train is a wonderful historic thing for us. It was right across the street here, where City Hall has been replicated to look like like the train station that used to be there. And so we really appreciate that, and I think a mention was made is there probably does need some archive work done to it. It's after 21 years, it's getting a little worn, but maybe we can talk to you about that.
Okay.
Because I'm too thrilled, but maybe we can still talk to you about that.
I remember the fumes were so strong for a while, and I was kind of in a closed area there. I had to wear this mask over my face, and it still didn't work. I still came out of there dizzy and like, whoa.
What about everyone else at the carousel hall?
Well, they couldn't smell it. It was just kind of confined to that one area.
I thought maybe that made riding the carousel a little more exciting for those
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. I remember when I first lined it in. Oh, something. when I first lined it in, I had, I just wanted to make sure I got the details right. So I had to pencil it in first, and then I painted it in. So I wanted to make sure I got the details right, so it looked just like the photograph. So.
We have a question about what it said on the front of the train, because remember when we got together about 6 months ago, we were asking about the train specifically.
If the number on the train was...
That was in the photograph.
Picture, or that was one of the
Yeah, that was in the photograph.
I was just going to ask, is there anyone that's here tonight that was at the unveiling of the mural? Besides,
just me, I guess.
This isn't you?
At least one.
Yeah.
No? Okay, I thought maybe this was you.
Well, considering the eastern morning strong sunlight exposure is, I would say, almost as vibrant now as it was then.
Yeah.
It's outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it's lasted really good. It still looks really good.
Given our weather, nothing else looks good after that.
Yeah. I'm just glad it was covered really well and protected. So. Oh.
Thank you. Plug his business, but be sure to stop by the Carousel Mall and get him to do a caricature, a portrait of you. That's his business. A little bit of business that we need to announce here is we had 27 votes for the board members, and everybody was re-elected. Keep hoping someday, you know, cross my name out and put yours in there. Okay, there was one other thing I was going to say. Oh well. Let's get to what you're all waiting for. You know, when I do meetings, I'm a minute over, so forgive me. But I try to make sure meetings go what I say they will go. So, Leah, you want to do the drawing?
I know, I have a few more people that want to buy tickets.
Oh.
Like Joanne's going to buy tickets. Rand's haven't bought any tickets yet.
Okay, that means I have to do a little filler here. Like Leah said, we always are looking for volunteers. We have a lot of stuff for you to do now, not just sitting at the desk and, like she said, waiting for somebody to come in. I know John sits there when nobody's around. He just reads the history of Seaside, and then he tells me these cool things he found. And he'll share those with the people that come in, particularly families of those people. If you didn't know, we have the, get their name straight, the Cloutry family genealogy up on the wall now, because there's still a lot of family members that come in and want to see where they fit in there. Another cool thing that we have, I believe, Bill Montero to thank for. We have the Sanborn maps from 1914 and 1921. And if you have particularly an old house that's somewhere around that era, it's really cool to go and look and see what was around your house at that time. And find out what was over there where the drainage was. All those kind of things. One other thing I came across, and this is probably the only chance I'm going to have to embarrass you. When we found a video of the old VHS video of the old fire station done in 1989, and then that was done by the fire chief, and then the police chief came over into this building and did a little tour around. They came in, what I'm assuming is the door somewhere right around there, and turned and put his camera this way, and there's this guy, a young guy, sitting there with his hand up on his adding machine, just going, and I don't think he ever looked up. He had his little black mustache and dark black hair just like he does now. And that is our soon-to-be retiring city manager, Mark Winston. So your office, your desk is right about here? Or a little farther back?
Over a little bit farther. You're outside right now, Steve.
Oh, really?
Yeah, those
okay.
are the windows right there.
Well,
you right over
when
that
you
corner?
retire, I fully expect you to come to the museum and give us some of the history of the era when you were here in this building. And I'm sure Jimmy would too.
I was sworn to silence.
Yeah,
He knows where the body is.
Dave, are we talking about 1960? Weren't you here?
right. Hey, I was 6 years old in 1960. Okay, are we ready for a drawing yet?
No, we gotta talk some more about it.
I gotta talk some more. People usually don't say that. Let's give our servers and the help here a round of applause for all the work of handling food like this. Thank you very much. Jim has always been a great supporter of the museum, particularly when we're doing history and hops. So like I said, hopefully we'll be back upstairs next fall. Some of the things that were on the schedule that got canceled was Sally Freeman from Fort Clatsop that would talk about the books on the Lewis and Clark expedition. There were a number of them that, you know, some things might have happened where they just didn't make it. And I believe Robin Montero even had something ready to go about one of the builders here in town.
Oh, that.
You remember that? Yeah.
You forgot that?
I gotta find it now.
You gotta find it, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm always more than willing, if you've got somebody that you think would be a great speaker, come and tell me. Because this is just a great venue to talk about the history of Seaside or surrounding areas. Okay? Now we're ready?
You can stop talking now.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna have Tina draw. No, where's she? Oh, she had to go, okay. Well then, let me have David, since he's our finance person. He will be very, very accurate and he will be very careful.
Unbiased.
Whoa, whoa! Stop, one of them flew out.
I'm gonna pick that. That's the winner.
Okay. What's the number?
588-172.
172. Who has 172? Nancy! All right! Congratulations.
And a $15 gift card for Oh, look at that, she's putting it back into the pot, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, that's the meeting. Thank you for coming to our business meeting, our little history, and we'll see you next year. Hopefully not next year, hopefully, you know, real soon when you come visit the museum or come to volunteer. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
You probably already know it.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. We're gonna volunteer.
I am. Good. Okay. So if
I remember.
Okay, well, okay, that'd be great. Did I get an email and send out?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I can send it, I send it and report it to you.
Okay, okay. I'll make sure, and if I forget, just, you know, I'll check with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that would be great. Because we're definitely wanting to get people in during those times.
Yes, yes, no, that's, well, 2001 was the year I bought the house. Yeah. So it was long.